Okay, if everyone could just take their seats, please. We're just going to try and stick to time as much as possible today, if we can. Okay, thanks everyone. So Chris and I were fighting over introducing our next speaker, we're both going to do it, but I'm going to start. Really proud to introduce Dr. Jamie Marshall to you, there's a number of anecdotes I could tell you here, but I'm just gonna mention one, which was when we were having a pint and somehow hit on the idea of him going up to Scotland and starting a surf therapy program up there, and I said, that sounds great, and off he went. And I had absolutely no idea how it was going to be done, whether there was even any surf up in Scotland. That was the limit of my knowledge of it. But Jamie went up there, set up a whole surf therapy program, which is still running very successfully. He still lives there. He's gone on to do a surf therapy master's, and then a surf therapy PhD. And now here he is, that PhD is just completed. So I think we should give him a big round of applause for all the work he's done in the space.
I just would like to add, because Joe, you said it eloquently, Jamie Marshall. I could say so many things about Jamie Marshall, a co-founder of ISTO, along with Joe Wave. I've now learned that Joe's surname is Wave. And Emma, I don't know where Emma's at, but Emma also a co-founder, and we've got several people in here that were a part of ISTO from the beginning. Also an ISTO board member, and let's see, what else was he doing? Longboard wannabe champion, hasn't happened yet. He's hoping for it to happen. I know Jamie as the guy who slept on my couch for 3 months while working on his research for his PhD. So Jamie, my friend, our board member for ISTO, here you go. You got this. We love you.
Can I use this one? I like to walk and cool. Firstly, for the guys in Australia, this is for you. Firstly, before I actually start on talking about evaluation, I actually just want to, as an ISTO board member and as the only ISTO board member who can make it to be here in person, I just wanted to say thank you to the Wave Project for what I think you'll all agree has been an amazing conference. I've learned so much. I forgot. So, by the way, I'm he, him. I've been changing my stuff. I just celebrate, the research approach you took to that. Yvette, I don't know where you are, but I still get nervous. I still get nervous speaking, so I've got my grounding item. I did my power hand this morning. Was Imagine Jose talking me through it. There's just so much powerful stuff going on over the course of this conference, and I just wanted to celebrate that as an ISTO board member. So yes, thank you, Wave Project. Now, after all that really exciting stuff, I'm here to lower the tone with some really dry, boring research stuff. I might be disappointing a few people watching and a few people in the room. I'm actually not here to talk about my PhD. Sorry. That will come. Might trail some bits of it, but yeah, we're going to save that for a big Marvel-esque release. But what I wanted to do today was actually just sort of look at where we're at. We're going to sort of take stock of where we're at with research and evaluation for surf therapy at the moment. And I also want this to be a really practical session. We're going to go through some things that are really practical steps for those of you who maybe are new to this journey, who are maybe just starting out, and also some tips for some of you who are a bit further along. So we're just going to go through some different things. And I also want to leave plenty of time for questions. And I want you to take this as an opportunity to have, I know online we've probably got some of the other amazing researchers involved with ISTO, Dr. Phil Ward, Dr. Giovanni, Gregor, Dr. Gregor, I mean, they're all doctors. So, Kristen, there's so many amazing researchers involved with ISTO, and they are a fantastic resource, and you should use them. Okay, there are very few networks in the world, that have organized themselves to do what ISTO has done, and really, I just encourage you to take advantage of that. So yeah, there'll be a space for questions. I actually encourage you to ask the questions on Hoover. I will answer any questions in the room fine as well, but on Hoover, some of the other research specialists related to ISTO, they might be able to sort of chime in as well. I definitely do not know the answer to everything, and yeah, I'll do my best, but yeah, there's an opportunity there for everyone to join in. So where are we at with surf therapy research? Do I need to click? So this is a little thing I actually drew up just as a favor for Chris for something recently, and has actually made it into my PhD because I think it's a really cool graph that sort of shows where we're at and where we're going with surf therapy. You can sort of see here, only 10 years ago, the amount of published research, and that doesn't mean that there wasn't really cool evaluation stuff going on before this time, but the amount of published research was minimal, and prior to 2010, research talking specifically about surf therapy did not exist. It's only 10 years ago. That's it's quite something. I actually certainly remember when Joe sent me off up to, I was living in Scotland and I was doing summer work down here, so it wasn't quite a sending off. But when I was first speaking to NHS trusts and things, and when I was first speaking to people around this idea of taking young people into the North Sea, I definitely didn't use the word surf therapy. And certainly even when I first started using it, I wasn't using it with confidence. And what I think the most exciting thing about this change that we're seeing in terms of the research that's been published is that I, for one, and certainly all of you should feel like this, I now do speak about surf therapy with confidence. The evidence is there. The evidence is clear that surf therapy is associated with a positive impact across a range of different outcomes. The most common outcomes are predominantly mental health, but there's also some really exciting things around physical health, around helping people with rehabilitation from injuries of different kinds. But there is strong evidence to an associated impact. You'll know some using specific words. That's a sort of, we're soon going to be able to say surf therapy is causally related to these things due to the amazing work going on in various RCTs around the world. We heard about Hannah's plans earlier in the conference, and that's super exciting. Kristen Walters, I mean, Chris, it sounded like you have some spoilers to that I'm going to have to try and get out of you at some point. Emma's work with her RCT. These RCTs are the things that are going to be able to speak with that confidence at the highest medical and policymaker levels, and that work is ongoing. 10 years ago, it was almost impossible to imagine an RCT around surf therapy. So I just wanted to highlight the sort of almost the exponential growth curve we're on in terms of academic interest and academic research around surf therapy. And yeah, there's just an awful lot going on. I also like to point out, you can almost see there is a pretty clear increase around when ISTO was founded. And that speaks to the collaborative nature of ISTO. That hasn't happened because, suddenly there's more people doing it or anything like that. It's because people started talking to each other and being able to collaborate on projects. Research is much better done in collaboration. I, for one, throughout my PhD, I've done work with the WAVE project, which was obviously natural given my history with them. But every partner I've done research with since, around the world, I've connected to through ISTO. And that's the power of this collaborative approach that we're taking. And then another special point I just want to highlight is the Global Journal of Community Psychology Practice special issue, which was the world's first special issue on surf therapy. So just to explain a bit of jargon there, a special issue, when you have an academic journal, they normally have a focus point. So it might be psychology, it could be environmental health, there's all kinds of different journals doing all kinds of different things. And what a journal will sometimes do is do a special issue that narrows its focus in even more. So obviously the Global Journal of Community Psychology Practice, it's a psychology journal. It's a very pragmatic psychology journal, very interested in high impact work. And what they did in the special issues, they said, wow, this surf therapy thing seems to have some real legs. Okay, let's focus on that for a whole issue. So I think there were 12 articles. I might have got that wrong. But there's about 12 articles just on surf therapy. And that's amazing. And that's another huge milestone. And we have to a massive shout out to Gregor Sarkisian who made that happen. So that's just another huge milestone for us as a sector. one of the really important papers that came out of that special issue was a scoping review conducted by actually some of the editors of the special issue that looked at sort of where actually, if you just read the authors list here, that's like the who's who of surf therapy research. So, you know, these are the people you want to be sort of talking to. But yet, what it did is it sort of did what I'm going to try and do now in a little presentation, but it did it in a sort of rigorous approach throughout a paper. And I'm just going to read this out. I don't normally read off slides, but taken together, surf therapy research is largely focused on program evaluation, which provided initial support for its effects on various health and psychosocial outcomes. However, so that's what we've just said. The evidence is strong, pointing in a clear direction. However, the current state of surf therapy research should be enhanced in order to expand our understanding of its use and application. Future research should incorporate more rigorous research design elements, standardized assessment measures, and identify optimal frequency and duration of programs. So for me as a researcher, the most exciting part of almost any bit of any paper is the implications. Like, where do we go next? Okay, yes, we've learned something, but what are we going to do with that? And that's what this statement, this is why I pulled this out of that whole paper that they ran. And I please do encourage you to go read this. It's freely accessible. We can share links. But this is what we need to do. We need to start incorporating some slightly more rigorous research. And we need to start looking at some slightly different elements. I think like the base sort of pre-post stuff, it's been done. We're fairly confident with it. There are reasons why you'd still want to do it for your own organization, and we're going to come to that. I'm sort of starting this presentation looking on quite a meta level, looking at the whole sector. And towards the end, I'm going to look a bit more about what we can do as individual organizations, how we can support our own organization through evaluation. But there's some clear thoughts there from the who's who of surf therapy research. Now, how can we sort of start to think about those sorts of things? Well, more rigorous research design elements was the first thing. And what's really exciting is this is already been done to the gold standard with the RCTs we've already mentioned. And the great thing for all of us in this room and all of us online and all of us in the surf therapy sector is those RCTs are going to be of a benefit for all of us. It's really cool to see that the RCTs are going on through different populations. So we've got RCTs with military personnel, we've got RCTs with young people, we've got Hannah's RCT with a specific ASD focus. It's, you know, it's really cool to see that we're recognizing that we have all these different populations and there's really rigorous work going on throughout them. However, there's still space for more. There's always space for more. And one of the things that I would encourage any of you, especially those of you who are maybe just starting out on this journey or relatively fresh to surf therapy to do, is to explore how you're going to track whether your surf therapy is having the impact you want. And there's a range of really great items out there already made so you don't have to sort of think of it all totally for yourself. I've just pulled up one here as just an example. This is the WHO 5 Wellbeing Index. It's one of the simplest wellbeing measures you can use. It's been validated, and it's actually translated into multiple languages, which is why there's very few scales that have been translated into as many languages as anything that's backed up by the World Health Organization. But it's 5 items long, okay? For those of you who are really just starting to get into it, this is a great starting point. It's nice and simple. It's not putting tons of burden on your participants. It can be done quite quickly. But there's lots of measures around that. And I really encourage you, there's a fantastic resource on the International Surf Therapy Organization website that was pulled together, a collaboration of different researchers, many of those that we've sort of talked to there, who came together and basically built a how-to-do evaluation template. And you can go on that website and just please freely use it. There's some fantastic resources on there. What's been quite cool, I've heard recently, is like non-surf therapy organizations have been going on and using that, which is very exciting. I've heard all kinds of different sort of mental health or sports-based programs actually going on and saying, wow, this is useful. It's very pragmatic. There's lots of examples. So please, if you've got one takeaway from this and you're in that initial steps of evaluation, please just go follow that link. We'll share it in the Hoover and everything. And yeah, just go read it and use it. Please do use it. So we've got these self-report measures. A lot of surf therapy's focus has been mental health. And that's where predominantly we often see self-report. You also potentially have clinician interviews. Parent rating is something. Sometimes you do have participants who really maybe can't, it would be inappropriate for them to be doing a self-report. And there are, I've listed in some of those, there's I think the kid screen has a parental option, and some of the others have. We've listed all of that on the framework, so you can just go and see. It's basically like a shopping list. Go pick out, oh, this is what my population, this is what I want. Okay, that's probably the best one for me. Okay, so yeah. And the other exciting thing is we're starting to explore some, and what I will say about this is new, not just for surf therapy, but this is new in terms of mental health research in any sector. Is we're starting to explore some biomarkers that we can actually collaborate with these self-report. Self-report, there is always the limitation of you know, how accurate self-report is, because there's all kinds of biases that might exist, or they're even individuals not recognizing various elements of how they're feeling. Biomarkers, the hope is one day biomarkers will sort of be able to help us with that. This is very new research, but you know, with surf therapy, we've done so much in so little time. We might as well be at the forefront of this kind of stuff. So there are biomarkers that you can explore. So I don't know if anyone's heard of heart rate variability. I'm not going to go into significant detail, but there are elements, not all of, but elements of heart rate variability that are increasing the research being linked with your sort of long-term mental health. Cortisol is a well-known, it's produced during stress, and the ways of measuring that are getting less and less invasive. I've got really into toenails recently, which is probably the weirdest thing I'll ever say on stage. But there is new research where we can actually sort of take a retrospective look at how much cortisol we're producing, a bit like counting tree rings. So we can actually look back for a certain period of time and understand and look at changes in cortisol levels and patterns, like longer term patterns, rather than, you know, just a like right there and then message. But again, this is all very new. I'm working with some amazing partners up at Edinburgh Napier to try and make this a reality. And actually, surf therapy will hopefully be one of the first interventions where we really trial this out and see how it triangulates with the self-report. Other things around inflammatory markers, and there's just, I think we need to keep our eyes open. You know, if there's something new and cutting edge, why not shouldn't surf therapy be using it? So, yeah, these are some of the ideas about more rigorous research design elements. If you've been doing evaluation for a long time, maybe you can connect with researchers and explore some of these new things coming out. If you're just at the start, get on that evaluation framework and find a validated measure that works for you. And yeah, if you can't find one, reach out to us. As a research team, we will try and help you find what's right for you. But most of our knowledge is in that framework. And the other thing we can start to do, in that first statement, we talked about that pre-post sort of thing that's been done very well in surf therapy, and that's the reason we're able to speak with the confidence we have at the moment. But one thing that the scoping review really highlighted is a lack of control groups. Now, we've spoken about control groups already with Hannah's presentation, and Emma referenced them with regards to randomized controlled trials, which are sort of at the very top end of sort of medical science. You don't have to be using a randomized controlled trial, however, to incorporate control groups. And a control group is better than no control group. Even if it's not perfect, even if there are, you know, confounding variables, it is still better than no control group. I'm a very pragmatic researcher, which means I think in a challenging situation where we're trying to do research, which we often are on the ground with surf therapy, we're going to do the best we can. We're going to make it as rigorous as possible. And then we're going to be transparent about the challenges we faced, around why maybe we did have a high drop-off rate, or why. And we're just going to be transparent. And that's the key to research, is just being transparent and honest. And that adds value to whatever you try to do. So I wanted to give you an example of a few things. Firstly, surf therapy organizations in the room, who has to deal with a waiting list, like for your service? Yeah, it's fairly common. You guys are doing great work, which means you probably are going to build up a waiting list. If you can take a test when people are referred to you, you can actually build up a bit of a baseline for some comparison. Again, this is not an RCT, but you can actually use your waiting list to an evaluation advantage. And it's something that if you can build this into your processes, if you can put a bit of work building into your processes, you're going to have lots of extra data points to sort of explore without much effort once you normalize it into your processes. I hold my hands up. It's going to be a bit more work at the start. But once you build that in and normalize that within your processes, you're going to have the potential to do something like a waitlist, which is, you've got 500 young people referred to you. The ones who go on the course first, you measure them obviously first, but your waitlist. Just as Hannah was describing her protocol, you don't have to use randomization. You don't have to have it in that incredibly rigorous for it to still be something valuable. It's still something that's not being done enough, and it still adds rigor to what you're doing. I'm going to come on to something that we developed at the Wave Alliance called the evaluation ladder to show that, there's different levels of research and evaluation. But in my opinion, they're all as valid and as important as each other because they're steps towards that gold standard. The other ones are within groups. So when I imagine most of you have referral processes whereby, participants are referred to you, and there's probably a bit of a lag time before they are in the water surfing with you. Now, if you can take a test, our Who 5, that 5-item checkpoint, it's just 5 items, boom. Would you mind filling that in at the referral process? And then you take another test when they start surf therapy with you. You've kind of got yourself a little control there. It's sort of it's kind of like a repeated measures is some of the technical terms. But again, these are steps you can take without tons of investment in scientific time, without necessarily having to budget for big researchers to come in. And it just adds a little bit of extra rigor to what you're doing. And it's doing something new that hasn't been done so much within evaluation and research. And stuff like that will help you talk with more confidence to stakeholders, to the press, and to the magic word funders. It makes you stand out from other people. The other interesting question, which we haven't talked about really yet, it's one of these discussions that often happens out there over coffee, and we haven't really talked about in any rigorous sense yet, is dosage and duration. It was one of the things that was highlighted in the special issue as something we need to look at going forward. What is the optimal dosage of surf therapy? We have a huge range of programs doing everything from programs that last multiple years to programs that run for a single day. I don't have the answer to this. I'm not sure there is necessarily one specific dosage for surf therapy because we need to think about what our outcomes are. And that's why I've brought some of these up. On your left, you've got a paper from Kristen Walter at the US Naval Hospital in San Diego, where they measured within session change. That's within one session. And they found these statistically significant decreases in depression, anxiety symptoms, and a statistically significant increase in positive effect within one session. Now, if that's our outcome that we're interested in, if we're looking just for, to almost be like an antidepressant drug where we're just giving people a dose where they're free from those symptoms, it appears one session's enough. Whether that lasts for longer-term well-being is a different question. So within this study, the individuals did go through several weeks of surf therapy, and we saw a longer-term impact as well. But I just wanted to pull out, within that one session, we're seeing that. So if that's your outcome that you want to work with, yeah, that seems like you just need the one session. And I want to pull out this other paper is from the research I did with Mesa in Sierra Leone. The paper's available. We weren't able to publish this graph. I'll tell you why in a second, once I've explained what it shows. But this is, we measured the attendance of everyone going on a 14-week surf therapy program. And you can see there was, firstly, I haven't got the numbers here, but there was a fairly even split between these three groups. And what we're interestingly seeing is the group that only got 1/3 of the program, so that was like, say, 4 weeks of the program. And again, there's limitations to this because maybe they went on week 1, week 6, week 8, and week 14. So it wasn't like they just had a 4-week program. But it's an interesting observation. Those who only got under 33% of it, there was no statistically significant change in any of the well-being measures we captured. I think that's interesting. This is looking at longer-term well-being. As soon as they got to above that sort of 30%, and again, this was quite an arbitrary split just to get even groups, so we could do some stats on it. Suddenly there's a statistically significant change and a moderate to large effect. When we get to the upper end, predictably, we also have a significant, statistically significant change and an even larger effect size. So, I mean, that's just an interesting, we discussed this in an observational way within the work we did, because we couldn't actually, this was the pooled data from across Sierra Leone, and there was sufficient variation between sites at baseline that we couldn't really pool it like this. So we just spoke about it descriptively from what we saw between the different sites. But I just wanted to pull up, because we still did this analysis, and it's interesting. It's the kind of research we can do that can start to answer the question around dosage. Like for longer term wellbeing, okay, do we need a certain amount of exposure to surf therapy? It's a bit like many kinds of drugs. You know, you need a certain amount of exposure. Whenever you get a prescription, it will say, you must take this 1 time a day for 3 weeks. And if you don't take it for the full 3 weeks, it might not work. That's what we want to explore with surf therapy. And again, it could be very different depending on your target population, your mode of delivery. There's all kinds of nuances around this. So again, lots of work still to be done, but I think it's exciting. I think these are questions that everyone in the room and everyone watching online would be super excited to find out about. And then there's other research priorities, and this is something I'm quite passionate about, is I think as researchers, evaluators, practitioners, we sometimes get a little bit obsessed with impact and outcomes. And there's so much other valuable evaluation that can be done. This can be done by yourselves as practitioners in certain ways, and there's other ways you can get researchers in to do. But my PhD was predominantly around program theory and mechanisms in surf therapy. So instead of does surf therapy work, my work was interested in, okay, we're going to say we think surf therapy works based on the evidence that we've looked at. Why does it work? How does it work? You'd never prescribe a drug without knowing how it achieves the impact it's linked with. If you didn't know why the drug was working, I don't think you'd get it through many sort of, many trials or anything. So there's still work to be done there. There's so much variety in surf therapy around the world, and there's strength to that we want to learn from each other. There's all kinds of nuances around things that are done with different populations and in different contexts that I think we can all learn from each other. So that research is very valuable. Access research. Who can and can't access our program? We had a fantastic presentation about this yesterday. Why can't they access our program? Why Ways for Change did some research on this based on some of the stuff we were doing in Liberia. Why is the uptake for young girls so low? Okay, that's a valid research topic. We're going to answer that in a rigorous manner. It means that everyone in this room can learn from it. And that's the value of research, is we're doing things in a rigorous and transparent and replicable manner, so the conclusions we can not necessarily copy and paste into every other context, but we can learn from them, we can potentially adapt to different contexts. Population-specific research is really important. One of the final papers of my PhD was looking at specifically the stigma associated with the police and first responders, and why there's so much stigma in that population around accessing mental health support. I mean, that's going to be so useful for us in surf therapy, but that's going to be so useful for any intervention that's working with that population. So it's also, when you're doing this work, not only are you supporting the surf therapy family, but you're potentially supporting everyone else who's working with that population. Longitudinal follow-up research, again, still not really been done. It was really cool to see that Hannah's project with the WAVE project, is really considering that. But what happens when our young people sort of leave our programs? Or what happens if they've been in the surf club for a long time? Or what happens, it's not something we've potentially done in depth. And there's all kinds of ways to explore that. And the final one is probably one of the biggest ones that we haven't touched on yet, but actually would be incredibly worthwhile for us as a whole sector, is the idea of health economics. We should do surf therapy because of the impact it has on every individual we work with. But unfortunately, we sometimes have to sort of look at the numbers. And if we can prove that the work we're doing is preventing people becoming inpatients, is preventing people worsening in their conditions, we are potentially saving, for example, in the UK, we are potentially saving the NHS a lot of money. Upstream healthcare is very economically efficient. And if we can prove that, and there are ways of doing that, I am not a health economist, and please, if you've got any questions for that, don't fire them at me, because I don't have a clue. But I'm currently working with some health economists to see what we can do. What do they need from our side as surf therapy practitioners? What do they need from us to do that research? How can we help them do it? And I think that's something that certainly if any of you think that's something you'd be interested in, it's one of the big gaps in our knowledge, and it's something that I think every other surf therapy organization that remotely connected you will then be linking to in future funding applications. So those are kind of our research priorities based off the latest, the scoping review, and also actually my literature review for my PhD had to be basically an update of that scoping review. So that's our research priorities going forward. Now, why do evaluation and research? I've spoken to a lot of people in the past who are like, well, it just sounds like a lot of hassle. Like, why would we do this? And the big word that everyone talks about is funding. And yes, that's a perfectly valid reason to do evaluation and research. It's a very valuable reason to do evaluation and research, but it's not the only reason. And I do like to stress that, because if you're only doing evaluation and research for funding reasons, you're missing out on some really cool stuff. So let's think about the different audiences. Yourselves, the organization yourself. When you do a PhD Viva, so that's the exam, there's some stock questions you have to kind of prepare for. It's like, how did you come up with this idea? What was your favorite part? What was the least favorite part? And one of the questions I prepared was, what was my favorite part of the PhD process? And my favorite part of every research project I was involved with was sitting back down with the organizations I've worked with and presenting the findings to them and discussing what that meant for them as an organization. And almost every time there were elements, they're like, wow, we did not realize that was so important for our participants. Okay, we're going to really intentionally focus on that now. And you can almost be so close to your delivery that you miss things like that. And if you can potentially get someone external or someone to go through that rigorous process, they can really highlight things that maybe you were missing. And that's really powerful. And that happened with every single organization I worked with. And it was just really rewarding. And it was really exciting for them. It's not critical. It's just like, this was actually stuff they were already doing, but they were almost doing it subconsciously. So there's all kinds of things we can do. There's all kinds of things we can learn from evaluation for our organization itself. And that does also include things that aren't working so well. And that's probably some of the most valuable evaluation data you will get, is when things go wrong. One of the partners in Sierra Leone, through the Wave Alliance, they had a really challenging sort of initial pilot phase due to certain disruption. And the evaluation was really helpful for us. Their evaluation was one of the most valuable evaluations I've ever worked on, because the evaluation very clearly said, right, we had these challenges and this is how we're going to overcome them for the next round. And then next round, they saw statistically significant increases, and a large to moderate effect size on well-being. So that is the value of evaluation outside of funding. Funders, I don't need to talk about funders. Funders love this stuff. When I was working for Joe at the Wave Project, the lottery in Scotland were actually asking us to do workshops on our evaluation because we were setting a gold standard. Okay? What I'm not taking away, I don't want you to take away from that how good the Wave Project is, although do. What I want you to take away from that is the rest of the sector aren't doing it very well. You can get yourself ahead of everyone else. If you're a funder, you have all these amazing projects get presented to your table. And I can guarantee all of them have smiling children's faces or wonderful photos or stuff like that. And you somehow have to pick which one your organization is going to fund. If one of them is showing a robust evaluation process towards their outcomes, you make that funder's decision so much easier. And they're very grateful for it, because it's almost like they don't have to worry about, feeling bad about things. They're like, I can't argue with that. Great, awesome. It also makes discussions with there's lots of funding out there that is not grant-based, and it certainly makes conversations with healthcare providers, policymakers, things like that, much easier if you can put some evaluation next to it. Key stakeholders, really important. So we're talking about, if you're working closely with schools, healthcare, social work. Key stakeholders also include the participants themselves. So we talked about access research, barriers to accessing the program. How best to find out about that? Find the people who are struggling to access your program and ask them why. Okay, incredibly valuable evaluation. I'm currently working on some research in Scotland where we're looking at how we can make the sort of social prescribing process as easy as possible for everyone involved. And of course the GPs love that, They don't love doing the research with me, but they love the idea of a smoother pathway. Government, again, we kind of already touched on that. Government love that stuff. And the media. You've just written a news story for them. Oh, taking people surfing makes them feel better. That's an awesome news story. First thing they're going to say is, how can you prove that? Well, here you go. Oh, okay. Right, we'll have a camera team down there next week, which is for the benefit of everyone. So when you think about evaluation, please don't just think about funders. And actually, what you can learn and what you can reflect on as an organization yourself, I would say is probably one of the most important parts of evaluation. So please, please do not neglect that. And here's the teased evaluation ladder. This is a process we've developed through our experiences working with multiple startup surf therapy interventions across the world. And there's a real temptation, and I hope, as dry as it all is, I hope you leave this seminar really excited about evaluation and upping your evaluations to the next level or whatever it may be. And there's a temptation to feel, oh my gosh, we need to do an RCT this year. Like you've heard these amazing things go on. There's an RCT, let's just do that. Evaluation is like a ladder, okay? You need to climb one rung at a time, okay? Something we talk about a lot with our partners when they first start is measuring attendance demographics, things like that, okay? Attendance is one of the most underreported elements of interventions in general globally. It's astounding, to be honest, that this is something that is not a priority. If we don't know who's coming and when they're coming to our intervention, how on earth can we learn about the impact we're having? So making sure that you have a way to track attendance. And I can tell you, if you're wanting to do an RCT, if you can't tell who was at what sessions, you can't run an RCT. As simple as that. So those simple steps, even if that's what you're going to focus on, for the next 6 months, it's just making sure that I'm going to track the attendance of our participants really well. That's a really valuable step on the way to good evaluation. Okay, and as I mentioned, it's foundational. Without that, we can't do the other steps. So this is not about saying the stuff at the top of the ladder is more important than the other, because the stuff at the top of the ladder can't happen without the rest of it. Okay? The next step, we can sort of start looking at a bit of satisfaction, a bit qualitative stuff, so we can sort of ask participants, how did you feel at the sessions, what were your takeaways, things like that. It's very valuable. I work a lot in qualitative data, and the depth you can get, some of the powerful testimony you can get, things like that, they're really rich, valuable data. You can often identify established psychological processes in there and all kinds of things which really strengthen your intervention. And if you want any guidance on that, there's some really good guidance, again, in the evaluation framework, or reach out to us. Like, we can help you with how you frame open-ended and non-leading questions and things like that very easily. As we climb up to the sort of next level, we've got our pre-posts using validated scales. There's been a lot of discussion of that sort of over the last few days with various projects, and I think that's really worthwhile. Again, what I want to stress is this is something that they want to go and read all the validated scales. And, we can use that one. We're going to do that. Make sure you have this other stuff in place beforehand. Make sure you're building processes around this. The top tip I give to people when they speak to me about evaluation is the first thing you need to spend a significant amount of time is figuring out what question you want to ask, okay? A lot of the time when people first get into evaluation, they want to ask every question, and every question is not the right question, okay? What are your participants? What's the primary impact you want to measure with your participants, and how am I going to measure that? Okay, so really, if you are on that beginning step with evaluation, that's your first couple of weeks. Right, what are the priorities for us as an organization? Okay, and they may be like something like access before we can even get to impact, I don't think we're reaching the people we want to reach. So actually, that's our priority question. And if that's the priority, that's the question you need to ask. And then we sort of get to the top end, the gold standard, as Hannah said, is these RCTs. RCTs are very challenging to run. They're very expensive to run, as we heard yesterday. They're at that level, you really want to be getting academic institutions involved to try and shoulder a lot of the load. So yeah, just at that top end, you're really wanting to bring other people in. I'd say everything else, as an intervention, you can do yourself with the right advice. And you're in ISTO now, so you can get the right advice, easy peasy. This is really available as well, if anyone wants to. We have it publicly available. So this was a really pragmatic session offering some top tips and sort of steps towards evaluation. I want to leave, I hope I have left, plenty of time for questions. There is no such thing as a bad question. I mean that right now, and I also mean that when you're approaching your evaluation. And I'd also just like to finish with one final point. And again, I've said there's a few takeaways from today, but this is probably the most important takeaway for everyone listening. And I say this I challenge researchers on this as well. Evaluation and research exists to serve your interventions and your populations at the end of the day, okay? Your interventions do not exist to be a research project for some researcher to build their career on or whatever, things like that. If research starts to impact on the delivery of your program, it is bad research. Firstly, ethically, it is bad that they are impacting, they are changing what you're doing through their research. That should not happen. And secondly, they set out to measure your intervention, not the intervention that exists because of their meddling. So I've met a few individuals through ISTO who are a little bit jaded with research and evaluation because they've potentially been engaged with researchers who have come in and essentially changed the direction of their program just to answer the questions maybe they wanted to answer rather than the intervention. And I think just if you're ever in that situation, and I'm not saying that researchers are malicious or anything, sometimes we just get a bit overexcited, I'll be honest. You should see me when a new data set comes in. It's really quite sad. But yeah, like sometimes we get a bit overexcited. We see something new and we want to go down that. And if that's not in the best interest of your intervention, stand up to us. Tell us, no, actually, that's something we can explore in the future. But right now, as an intervention, this is what we need to focus on. And you're quite right to say that. And every researcher I know who's worth their salt would be like, oh, yeah, absolutely, spot on. So yeah, remember, no such thing as a bad question. And research exists to serve your interventions, not the other way around. So yeah, hopefully left some time for some questions.
Apparently that mic's not working, so...
Oh, right, do you want this one?
So, Jimmy, do you want to stand
I'll stand there.
for a minute, and I'll start taking this one, thanks. There is quite a few questions on the app.
Oh dear.
You'll be delighted to know that lots of people are interested in evaluation, so you've got people's interest. I just wonder, is there any questions from the room first that anyone would like to stick their hand up and ask? Yeah, Chris.
I don't need a mic. I just
You
want to know.
do need a mic for the new.
I would just like to know how Jet is feeling after your PhD has finished up. Please share.
We can talk about my cat after in lunch. But yeah, I know there was a therapy dog around earlier. My cat has definitely been my therapy cat throughout my PhD. But yeah.
Okay. So moving on from your cat, Jeremy, you've given some. This is the one that's had the most votes so far. You've given some great examples of statistical qualitative measures to evaluate. The data from these tell a story, but there are complexities of experience, identity, stroke situation that need to tell the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to the importance of the qualitative measures and how you would recommend that we fit those with the surveys?
Absolutely. It's kind of cool, perfect. Absolutely. As I mentioned, I'm actually predominantly a qualitative researcher. I'm really dyslexic, especially with numbers, so getting back into stats has been a real journey for me again. But yeah, the stats tell when you do a piece of quantitative research with the numbers, it really tells a snapshot of something very particular. And what's really great about the qualitative research, I mean, I'm a really big fan of mixed methods research where we combine the two, because we can get that really rigorous snapshot from the quantitative research, but the qualitative research gives us the depth and all those things that were mentioned in the question, the nuances, the complexities, and without that, I will stress. So when we did the study in Sierra Leone, and I mentioned there was that one partner who we found these problems. If I'd just been measuring the quant, it would have been like, oh, it didn't seem to have the effect we wanted. I have no idea why. But because we'd incorporated quite a large battery of just qualitative pieces of work, that included questionnaires for participants, interviews with other stakeholders, community members, what was really cool, actually, Messa spoke yesterday about the importance of the head persons in the local communities, and we got them to give us their feedback on the surf therapy, you know, and a lot of them had maybe not actually, they'd heard about it, they'd agreed that it could happen on the beaches. Some of them had visited, but some of them hadn't, so they were really speaking to that sort of how this is fitted in within the community and challenges and positives around that. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, the question, you've kind of sort of listed the reasons why we need to do that within the question. I think it is important to remember, you know, every number in all of our evaluations is a person, and it can be very easy to get lost in that when we're trying to, you know, prove things through RCTs and things. And the qualitative can really give the depth around that. And I will be speaking about the outcomes of my PhD fairly soon, don't worry. But yeah, in that, we're really able to explore, you know, why individuals were feeling that. There's some of you will know, I've been keeping account of how many times the term safe space has been used in the conference so far. And that's because one of the key outputs of my PhD was looking at safe spaces and really actually trying to explore what the nuances of those safe spaces are. What do they look like? How do we facilitate them? How are they experienced by different groups? How are they experienced by different populations? Like, so for example, Chris mentioned I was slumming on her sofa for 3 months. How does a safe space look for veterans in the United States compared with young people in post-conflict Liberia? I mean, there's nuances there. Safe spaces seem to be really important to surf therapy. By the way, I'm not counting when I say safe spaces, that'd be cheating. But safe spaces seem really important to surf therapy. But we also need to understand there is contextual nuance with even these sort of foundational mediators that we're starting to identify. So yeah, thank you for that question, because it's spot on. And it's very common for us to get a little bit caught up in the stats, because we do need them for some of those big overarching statements, but we need the qual for everything else as well.
So there's quite a few more. This is something you touched on in your talk, Jamie, about dosage. How could we identify optimal frequency and duration of programs? Well, every person has a different needs, which changes over time. Would a flexible frequency and duration of programs be feasible as well? For example, the answer to the girl yesterday, I will never leave the wave project.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a degree of flexibility is really important within intervention delivery. You know, we need to be able to react to the needs of our participants, and we need to be able to react in an informed way. It's been really encouraging to hear so many people taking trauma-informed spaces really seriously. You know, we need to understand what we need to do when things don't go right, when people get into crisis, and we need to be able to either have people on the beach who can deal with that, or, you know, either at that clinical level or at that community level. And we also need to be able to signpost them to, I think this raises a very important point of, we're part of a wider system, okay? Surf therapy is not a silver bullet. It does not cure people like that. It does not fix anything like that. And there are times where surf therapy is not enough at all, and we really need to be helping people access the clinical support they may need. And actually, if that's what your surf therapy program does, give someone the confidence to actually go and engage with clinical support, it's done something incredibly important and powerful. Mental health, this morning we heard about avoidance, okay? Avoidance of treatments is one of the biggest problems in mental health of any condition. I have my own personal history with PTSD, and the avoidance, I can tell you, as someone who's supposed to know it all, it's so powerful. I didn't speak to anyone for about 10 months, and I did that all subconsciously. It's so powerful and scary. And if your interventions are helping people overcome that avoidance, if they're giving them the confidence to then go and actually go to the doctor, well, you know what, I don't think I'm all right. I think I need a bit of help, extra help. That is so powerful. So yeah, there needs to be that flexibility in terms of seeing ourselves as wherever possible a really integrated system. There's a lot of interventions here that are doing that really well. They're integrating with their local healthcare frameworks or other things. So yeah, that flexibility is so important. In terms of optimal dosage, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there as well, because we do work with such varied populations and different groups and different contexts and different means. You know, even the means of what we're able to provide in terms of plugging into healthcare. The work I did with Ways Change in Liberia, there's one clinical psychologist in the entire country. So plugging into existing healthcare is a very different challenge there compared to, say, in the UK. So yeah, flexibility is so important.
But it doesn't mean we shouldn't be exploring that dosage. And especially, ISTO's long-term goal is to see surf therapy prescribed. And we need to explore that prescription. To get it to that prescription level, there needs to be this discussion of dosage. And I think that's, again, something we need to look at. We need to look at it from the point of view of different pathologies, different diagnoses, different populations. So yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of work to be done. I spent the first half of my talk doing a nice bit of back patting, but yeah, there's a lot to be done. That curve needs to keep going up at an exponential rate for us to achieve that goal of prescribing surf therapy more generally.
Thanks, Jamie. Next question. Validated well-being scales are mainly developed in in a high-income country context, brackets UK, USA, Europe. How do we translate these? How do these translate into other contexts? What do you think about adapting tools to fit context, cultural experience in terms of rigor and validity?
Absolutely. It's something that needs to be done. There is a challenge around adapting a validated scale because it has been validated in that wording in that way. And even when you translate a scale, so the WHO-5, one of the advantages of it is it was something that was attempted to be designed to be relatively cross-cultural. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but I think it's a good starting place. And even when they translate the same scale into a different language, we need to test that it means the same thing in that language. So even just take away cultural nuances, just language nuances present a challenge to validating scales. So actually adapting scales it's not really a question, it's an imperative. And as I've mentioned, we've been doing a lot of work in West Africa, and we're really trying to explore how we adapt scales that are fundamentally Western in how they've been designed to fit that context better. And it's a slow process, and we have to start from somewhere. We have been using Western scales, but we have to start from somewhere and testing how participants understand that, what it means, even what mental health priorities are in different contexts. Something I'm very passionate about is collaborative approaches to evaluation and research, especially in different cultures and contexts. And I challenge all the researchers in the room and out there, whenever you're working in partnership with a different organization, you should also be looking to build their own research and evaluation capacity. I started on my research role doing Hannah's evaluations for the WAVE project. That's how I started. And now I'm here in front of you with a PhD. Every time we help another organization build their evaluation capacity as either an organization that's already doing it really well or as an academic or a researcher, you don't know who you might be setting on that path. And we also want to be encouraging more research to be coming from different cultures and different contexts. A lot of my work is involved in sport development in Africa, and it's something scary, like 80 to 90% of research done on Africa is done by white Western individuals like myself. I'm part of the problem, okay? So it's an ethical imperative for us to be building capacity, to be working collaboratively with partners. I had a bit of a wrangling with a journal over getting all of the co-authors from Sierra Leone on because they all contributed to that evaluation, but some of them didn't have access to an email. And I was just trying to explain to them that, well, you're putting a barrier there towards people who have contributed and are building a potential career in evaluation, because in Sierra Leone, no one uses emails. The only people who use emails are Western people. Okay, most of the communication, even when we're working with them on these projects, is done through WhatsApp and various things like that. So, even at that sort of micro level, it's so important. So yeah, it is challenging, it's difficult, but it's also an imperative that we keep doing that.
Thanks, Jamie. Next one. I think I know what you're going to say to this. Do you think it would be a good idea to share our outcome data with each other as surf therapy organisations to allow for comparison between interventions and contexts?
Yes. Yes, this speaks to the first, I think it was the first question. Yes, we should share outcome data, but we should also remember the context from where it's come.
Let me just ask this next question as well, because it's kind of linked.
Okay.
Are there any tools, apps, etc., that you'd recommend for us to utilise to record and analyse data?
Yeah, they're on the evaluation framework. But yeah, it's. I think you need to be more important than. And I'm going to sound controversial here as an ISTO board member. More important than ISTO's overall goal, you need to answer the question that's most important for you and your population. Okay, so if I stand up here and tell you should all use this one scale, I'd not be being true to that fact, which is a fact. Okay, different populations have different needs. For example, veterans, there's often a lot of focus on PTSD because that is a challenge that many of them are facing. So really, we should be looking at those outcomes. Other individuals, we might be looking at depression, anxiety, physical components, well-being, confidence. There's different things. So, yeah, I don't actually have my answer for that is not a clear-cut. Yes, we should all be. No, it's not. We should all necessarily be using the same scale, but we should absolutely be sharing our data, and we should be doing that by doing evaluation and sharing that together. And I can guarantee, if you do an evaluation, you share it with Chris, it's going to get sent to me. It's going to get sent to all the researchers on that list so we can have a look. It's going to be stuck on Instagram. It's going to be shared with everyone. So we really encourage you to do that. It's something we've been sort of trying to boost a bit more. And it doesn't have to be a peer-reviewed piece of literature. If you've got an internal report that talks about something really exciting, send it in, please, so we can share it. Because I bet you there's another organization around the world that somewhere is asking that exact same question, and you can help point them about how they can answer it best.
Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, and we do.
Okay.
Just
If any I can't answer now, I'll be straight on the
Jamie's
Hoover app.
around today, so if we don't get through to all of these questions, yeah.
Hello. I feel like you've sort of already answered this a little bit, but for grassroots projects that are just starting up and they want to implement evaluation systems from the off, I think evaluation and research and sort of academia can feel intimidating, and maybe if that's not your background, you can sort of have a bit of a sense of imposter syndrome, like, well, who am I to be collecting research and evaluation? What practical advice would you give to those grassroots projects? Would you say try and link up with a researcher who can take that part of it for you? Or, if you're not in that world, I think it can feel a little alienating.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. This is something academia needs to do better at. There is often a chasm between academia and the people it's supposed to be serving. And it's something that is getting better. One of the biggest metrics in academia now is something called impact, which around before it was all about how many papers you published. But increasingly we're looking at high impact work, which is impact that is having a real effect in the real world. So I think, firstly, I completely agree with you. I do think it's starting to get better, but very, very slowly. Firstly, my advice around imposter syndrome is you can be standing at a podium at an international surf therapy conference having just completed your PhD and very much still have imposter syndrome. So I don't have a quick fix for that. But what I would encourage you to do is try and connect with the researchers, especially the ones already involved in ISTO, because they are all super friendly. One of the great tragedies of this online format is none of you will get to see Phil Ward's dance moves. And after that, you would never feel intimidated to ask him a research question. But I love Phil dearly. He's a dear friend and he made my PhD possible. So, I really would encourage you. Again, it kind of goes back to that starting point that I made as an ISTO board member. This room, this community outside this room is incredibly powerful, and we have pulled in some people who will answer your questions. I've certainly been answering several questions exactly like that, wanting to start up on Hoover. Please, occasionally it might take us a bit of time to get back to you. We're all quite busy. But what I can guarantee you is the researchers involved with ISTO will help you. And, maybe it is they can direct you to another researcher who will actually come and help you with that. Or maybe they can just give you the advice to go and do it yourself. And then maybe you're going to publish the next paper, and then maybe you're going to do the next PhD. So, absolutely. I think just get in touch with Chris can probably help be a great gatekeeper for anyone, especially in the surf therapy world, who wants to sort of reach out and ask those questions.
Thanks very much, Jamie. Snaps and claps for you. I'm really sorry we didn't get to all of the questions, but we are out of time.
I'll jump on the Hoover and answer everything I can.
Just to say, I'm going to hand over to Becky to introduce our next speaker, Tom Kane, in just a moment. But there are a number of questions on the Hoover app. Jamie, I'm sure you'll be happy to sit and respond to people there. So thanks very much for all of those questions. So to you.
Thanks, Joe. I'm really delighted to welcome Tom Kay. He's the director of the Finisterre Foundation and the founder of Finisterre. Slightly lighter topic than evaluation and research, so give them all a round of applause and welcome Tom. Those? Or do you want those?
Yeah, can I grab that one? Yeah, that's cool, thank you. I'm not using that, am I? I'm just
Just say.
Okay, perfect. Hey everyone, great to be here. Thanks Joe and Becky for having us along. Thank you. Such a amazing community here, and people doing unbelievable things. So, a real privilege to be able to sort of talk to you about what we're up to. I'm Tom, the founder of Finisterre, but I'm most excited and really, really pleased and proud to be here to talk to you about the Finisterre Foundation, which we've just launched, and its sole impact is to champion equal access to the ocean for all. It's about big impact. It's about doing all we can as quickly as we can, and we're really, really proud to be the first people I've talked about it. So I'm really, really pumped, and so it's really exciting. So that's what the foundation's here to do, and I thought I'd probably start with a story. Because I think that's a good thing to do, and it'll probably resonate with a lot of you in the audience and maybe the speakers online as well. And it goes back about probably about 4 or 5 years now, when this lady called Claire, and she was doing work with us. She's lived in London, and really, really amazing lady. And she'd come down to Aggie, and she'd do a couple of days' work, then go back. And then one weekend in July, she's down with her family. And she says to me on a Thursday, Tom, is it all right if you take my son, who's like 6 at the time, maybe 5 actually, but can you take him for a surf? And I was like, yeah, no problem at all. I do that quite a lot. I have done that a lot of my life. And so I took, got down, got my own kids, got everyone in wetsuits, Saturday morning, it's a bit hectic, what it's like, those of you got kids, and got everyone on the landy, going down to Aggie, got on the water. My own son then, who's 3 back then, classic 3-year-old, didn't want to be on the beach with everyone else, but didn't want to be in the water. So I had him on my shoulders, and I'm taking Harry and his mum in for a lesson. And so I'm in the water, like it's pretty wobbly with a 3-year-old on the shoulder, trying to give a surf lesson. And I'm pulling in Harry and his mum into these waves. And Harry's an amazing guy. He was one of those kids he's not like mega enthusiastic, or didn't say much at the time. Some kids you take in the water and they're buzzing when they come out. But he had a lesson, and he stood up, and his mum stood up, and all the rest of it. And I didn't think any of it. About an hour and a half in the water Saturday morning, said goodbye, said thank you, and off we went. Then about a month later, I was just, it's August, end of August, and I get this call, and I was like, hello. It's, oh, hey, Tom, it's Claire. And I was like, hi, Claire. I need your help. I was like, yeah, sure, what do you want? So, well, since that lesson, Harry went in the water. We've been back in London. Harry has not stopped talking about getting in the sea and surfing, and he will not shut up about it. So much so that we're now on holiday in Devon. It's August bank holiday. It's like midday, whatever. And can you tell me where the nearest beach is? I was like, what, now? She's like, yeah, now. And he's there, and he wants to go to sea now. So I was like, got Google Maps out, and I was like, right, okay, they're literally in the middle of Devon. It's like 2 hours to Croydon, 2 hours to Banff, and whatever. It's August bank holiday. I'm like, oh, traffic's going to be really bad. You realise that? The surf, there's not actually, it's just a summer, like wind shot, whatever. There's not much swell. She was like, no, we're going to go. So anyway, I told them where to go, sent them to Croydon. They drove to Croydon, and they phoned back in the day, said they had an amazing day and the rest of it. And I think there's a sort of interesting thing from this story, and as I said, it probably resonates with a lot of people in the audience, and they can imagine that happening in many of the worlds that you guys have come to this conference on, is the power of the connection to the sea. And that was just one story that I had. Harry and his mum have now moved to Cornwall. He is in the sea. As every time I go on the beach, he's down there. And it's not just surfing he's really connected with. He goes, coast-steering, he goes swimming. He has really connected to the sea. So the power of that initial connection to change someone's lives, transform it, hopefully be better as a person in terms of his well-being, hopefully better as a person in terms of his understanding of the ocean and its the importance of it in all of our lives and the future of the planet. And it's just something I didn't really think about at the time. And then I started thinking about it, and I've probably been doing that for nearly 2/3 of my life, not officially, or sometimes officially with surf schools, but often it's a Saturday morning, it's my neighbours, my extended family, it's friends of friends, it's all kinds of adults as well, any age, connecting people to the sea. I've had people who've never been in a wetsuit before come out the garage with like feet in the arms of the wetsuits going, I think the size is a bit wrong. So people who have never really understanding of the ocean space and how to get into it. And that's really something that I really kind of understood, and I actually started writing after that I was like, I've got to write down a logbook of all the people I've taken surfing. And I got to the garage this morning, and I hadn't looked at it for quite a while, but I've written down everyone I've taken in the water. From this guy's 50, I put down the conditions, where he went, and who it was, and you've got all, that's Raf, he's now 12, he was 6 at the time, Florence, his best friend, and that's just my own kind of story of the personal connection to the sea and the power of connecting people to the sea. And I guess I started Finisterre nearly 20 years ago, and it was always about replicating that connection through a brand and building product to do that in the best way you possibly could do, building the right business, the right product, with B Corp certified, all that sort of thing. And we've been really lucky to connect with some amazing people along that journey that I'm really, really proud of, actually. And but it was really about, it was now time to sort of step on that commitment, step on that intention, and start a foundation that would be all about this. And the vision of the foundation is really about equal access to the ocean for all. And I probably, like many people here, I'm incredibly lucky. If I want to go in the sea, I have no barriers. I have a car, I can drive down to the beach. I can walk across the beach. I'm confident enough to swim out into the sea or go out into the water. I feel culturally at home in the water. There's no barriers for me to get in the sea. But for many, many people, as I'm sure everyone is aware, that really, really exists. And it could be cultural, race, religion, just confidence. It could be an economic thing, be able to get to the beach, many, many, many things. So that's really what the foundation is here to do. And it's super exciting to be the first audience ever talk to about it. And it really is something I think we want to unlock on a personal level because of you've probably heard a lot on this few days about the well-being effects of the sea and mental, physical, psychological, hormonal, spiritual, everything that the sea does for us. And then also understanding that when you're back on land, it's about, if something gives you that, what are you going to give it? And it's about protecting it, looking after it, understanding that it's the lungs of the world and its health is fundamentally connected to our own survival. So there's a really, really big story there around that initial connection. And it's about a human thing above anything else, in my opinion. And it's, connect someone emotively to something, and it gets really deep inside you. So that's the Finisterre Foundation. And so how does it work? And I'm sure some of you know about CICs here, but for those who don't, it's a community interest company. And that's a company set up really for social enterprise. It's asset locked, it's transparent. And the idea, I think, for us is that it was a really good way, quick way for us to get going and create some impact. But it probably will go on sort of stepping stone to becoming a fully fledged charity when as soon as we can. So that's the founder, that's sort of practically how it works. And the great thing is we've supported many great causes over the life of Finisterre. This is the way the business can officially support it. So if we have sales events, if we do physical events, if we do, for C7 we had an ocean activist training camp, a digital one, and we did a beer with Harbour Brewery, and the profits of that, the sale of the beer, went to the foundation. So there's many ways that we can fund it. We can access grants, and as well as that, there's like 130 people now at Finisterre, all around the country. There's 9 stores around the country. We've got an amazing global network, ocean lovers around the world, and we can really lean into them to sort of give the foundation some legs and really give it the support it needs. And we can volunteer. The guys at work can volunteer. We can do secondments. We can do all kinds of things. So it's not just a monetary thing. It's bigger than that. It's about the community. Obviously, everyone is here today. This is the community we're talking to, and it's about also widening the community out, because you could say that most people here are, we get it, but it's about the next level down. How do you create that ripple effect of, preaching to people that need to know and really change those lives? So that's how it practically works. I suppose that's the story about my personal connection to the foundation and also the business, I suppose. And then how are we actually doing? What are we actually doing? As I said, it's quite new. It's quite small steps for us, but the biggest impact steps we can make. And we are already starting to support some amazing causes. And these generally are charitable initiatives and projects that are going on, like the WAVE project, like Level Water project, which is taking kids who have never been swimming in inner city areas or with disabilities and getting them in the water in the pool, because often kids come down to the water. We had some guys from Brixton come down, and they stayed in the Scout Hut in Snagness in August, and some had never been swimming before the week they came down. So the guy organisers like, listen, we need to get them in the water so that it's not such an unknown when they get there. And so that's an amazing charity support as well. And City Kids Surfing, which I'm going to show you a film about in a minute. Also, we can do our own events and sort of initiatives as well. And these sort of really lean in some sort of the brand sort of knowledge, I suppose. So one is the Sea Suit project, which we've been working on for 5 years now. It started with Dr. Eastie Britton, who's, I think, on After Lunch, who's amazing, and her knowledge in this area is just phenomenal. And it was all started from a friend of ours who's an Iranian triathlete, and it was all about body conservatism in women in the water, and that being a barrier to entry into the water. It could be religious, could be cultural, it could just be physical. And so we've been working with Falmouth University now, leaning on the sort of the knowledge we have in the business with fabrics and design and all that sort of thing, to build a sea suit, make a sea suit that it prevents the barriers for these women getting in the sea or getting in the water. And we had an amazing day with Nick at the WAVE about 3 weeks ago, where 15 Muslim women went to the WAVE, and we field tested the project and the sea suit to see how it was. Got some amazing feedback, and we're actually going to be making that sea suit, which will be funded by the foundation and will be for sale through the foundation next March. So that's a really cool way how how you can sort of blend the two, and it's like, thank you, it means a lot. It's I think all these things as well, like we did a big ocean actors training camp when G7 was on, called C7, and it's for everybody here, there's like everyone's on a journey, and I think the support that the community can offer each other, it's really being brave, doing something that is probably outside your comfort zone. So all this sort of stuff is outside of our comfort zone, but it's about being honest as well, really having honest dialogue, saying, do you know what, I'm finding it fucking hard to do this, or it's really, I've got challenges, and sort of being there for one another, supporting each other through it. But it's ultimately about being hopeful and about what you believe is possible through the little effect that you're having, the little change you're having in your area, and never underestimate the power of that. It's huge. And then we've got Andrew as well, who is, I'm going to show a film about Andrew. His wife approached us. He's from Cornwall, and another way how I suppose the brand, and we can really kind of lean on some manufacturing and what we know to break down barriers. So first film, who am I pointing at for the first film? Is that you, Bex? Thank you.
It's something that anyone can do, really. It's just an ability to kind of let yourself get in the water, I guess, and begin that idea of connecting with it. Maybe initially feels a little bit out of the norm, but I think once you're in the water and you're kind of just in a space that you enjoy, the bonuses outweigh the challenges, I guess. I don't really call myself a surfer by any stretch, but I kind of just enjoy all the things that are to do with being in the sea and the freedom it gives me. So CP affects me mainly in my legs, essentially. So I find kind of moving around on kind of land, if you like, quite difficult. It can be quite painful, quite wearing, and I think that's partly where my kind of love of water comes from, is because you're in this environment where suddenly you're not weight bearing, and I think that gives me sort of a freedom that I sort of enjoy that I don't always get. You know, the longer I can keep moving and keep active, the less effect, I guess, that CP will have on my sort of day-to-day living. We went to the beach when we were kids with my mum and dad every summer, because that's what you did living in Cornwall. That was the bonus of living somewhere like this, was that you kind of had access to that sort of landscape all the time. Probably about 5 years ago, I was trying to kind of have a bit more of an active sort of life in the water, but obviously struggle getting in and out of wetsuits. I mean, I don't think anyone finds them a party to get in and out of, but for me it was a little bit more of a struggle maybe than for some. So my wife emailed Finisterre and asked for some advice, essentially, just this is a situation, would you better help? So it was a kind of that discussion around the product that Finisterre already had, and then how that product could be kind of adapted to maximise the enjoyment of being in the water. We went down to meet the guys at Bodyline, and they kind of discussed what they were able to do. For me, it was more about getting a bit more movement in my ankles and my wrists.
Putting the zip on the top there, that's going to be okay to get into there, yeah?
Yeah, that's ideal, yeah.
The zip will be longer.
Yeah, but it's the kind of opening case at that point.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, great, thank you.
Come here to the wave. The added accessibility that the wave offers compared to kind of a beach environment will just make things a little bit easier. People have said to me things like, I can't be a surfer because I can't do this or I can't do that, my balance isn't good enough, all those sorts of things, and I've just sort of said to them that the most important thing is just being in the water and enjoying it. It's far more broad than just surfing a wave in the perfect style that you see in the magazines. We can all get something out of being in the water, and there's health benefits from being part of that.
Thank you. So that's a cool, really amazing story, and that's something that we can now fund with the foundation to adapt wetsuits, so they are there. That take that barrier from access that may have existed before. So something really exciting. Just watching that got quite emotional actually, because it's a super privilege that we can do that, and that's really what Finisterre is here to do, and that's what the foundation's here to do. So it's the first time that's been shown in a big audience. So yeah. Also, my my uncle actually, he had CP as well, and he's no longer around, and he would love that. So I didn't get that until I just seen that. So yeah, thanks guys. Let's crack on the next film, if that's okay.
At City Kids Surfing, we take children from inner city life and we give them the opportunity to experience what it is to surf in British waters. And we feel that we're lucky having had that, and we're just passing it on.
I'm excited to go surfing. Yes, the shark's gonna gobble me up. Rum, rum, rum. It's going to be hard, but I'm sure I can pull it off.
When they get out in the ocean, they almost get drawn in. So they start on the edge and then they get closer and closer and closer, and then suddenly they forget about friendship groups and who they are, and glasses come off and hair go.
head, but I just couldn't picture it. It's too good. I've been in the water for so long.
Often I kind of stand back a bit and just watch. You just see them all, they've forgotten about all the worries, and they're just jumping around and they're happy, and yeah, that's the best bit.
I thought I'd be shivering when I came out, but the water was actually really nice. I'm really looking forward to tomorrow.
They're doing pretty good considering some of them. It's the second surf ever. They've been surfing for 4 hours. They should be knackered, but they're just like full of it, still going, still getting up.
You know it's here and it's free and anyone can come, and it always will be here. I think that's what we wanted tonight.
I have watched Rising Giants, which is actually a great film, so I want to ride waves like them. That was the best time.
Thanks, everyone. That's Tom from City Kids Surfing. We work with him now for 4 or 5 years, actually, and I think the smiles say it all. Nothing more needs to be said there. So thanks a lot for everyone's time. Thanks, Becky and Joe, for having me and putting this whole 3 days on. I think you're all an amazing community and people doing unbelievable things. And look out for each other, be there for one another, support each other. And I think the power of individual leading up into collective action and affecting change is never underestimate that. So yeah, keep on with all the great work, and I'll see you out there.
Thanks, Tom. That was amazing. Great videos as well. Are there any questions in the room?
Hi, Tom. Thanks for that. That was really cool. I just wanted to ask your advice. I think when business collaborates with the third sector charity projects like the ones in the room, it can often be very transactional in nature. It's like we give you something, it makes us feel better, or it's publicity. I've been blessed with the Wave Alliance project to have worked with you guys, and that's not what it is. There's definitely, you seem to take a partnership approach, and you're a bunch of legends, so it's very easy. But what would your advice be to, I guess, the guys in the room around how to approach business on more of a partnership manner than a transactional manner?
Yeah, I think, thanks, that's a good question. So, yeah, I hope everyone heard the question there. So how do you approach business? I mean, I think for us, whenever we do partnership, you're always kind of going into it with a longevity in terms of like, there's an authenticity there, like a genuine authenticity, and there's a real like belief in longevity of the relationship. It's not just like for a season or a year, whatever it is. It's like, you go forward 10 or how many years, you can see that relationship existing. I think you're both coming at it from that angle, and you are both, that you believe in the sort of that connecting purpose, and the I suppose the purpose, which is bigger than the individuals, bigger than both parties, and is bigger than all of us, even here today. If you believe in that's kind of what carries the relationship forward. So we've always, I've always kind of believed in that, and I think you can kind of get a good idea whether that exists when you meet people. Is it genuine? Is it real? Is what's inside them? And so my advice would be to search out that. And if you find that connection and that shared belief and kind of common purpose, that common ground between business and, say the charitable sector or charitable initiatives, then that's a really good basis to kind of go forward on. Yeah, that's the question. Okay, cool.
Great, thanks, Tom. I've got one on the app here. It says, How can brands duplicate your model in mass?
How can they dupe them? I think that comes down to the same sort of point really. I think if there's like a genuine purpose to the brand and to the business, and business is ultimately also a lot of brands are a tool to affect change. It's what is the change that you want to affect, and that might be. I've given an example of the change that I personally and for the business and foundation are looking to affect. And so if there was, it depends on the brand or the business, and many amazing businesses out there affecting change in different sectors or different causes or whatever it is. So if find your cause, find your purpose, find your drive, and what's going to get you out of bed beyond just cash flow and all the boring stuff that you have to do in the business as well. What is that that's going to exist in like say 50 years time when they're no longer around? What's going to be the thing that's going to keep on going? And once you've found that, you nurture it, you protect it, you grow it, and that's the secret to, in my opinion, the kind of the momentum and keeping these kind of initiatives going. So it's really about what you believe in, the change that you want to see in the world, and use the business to do that. But the brand or the person answering that question needs to work that out for themselves, and then go, right, this is what I'm here to do. This is something it sounds dramatic. It's something to change the world, and and just don't let go of that.
Great, thank you. Any other questions in the room? Hang on. Yeah. Oh, I do have one more online. How do you source your materials with protecting the oceans always on your mind?
It's a business question, good one. It's we're business, and so we've always looked at ways to mitigate. We are business. We have a negative impact on the planet. But it was always about growing the business in the right way, having the B Corp framework to really grow that business in the right way, and we will look for alternatives for fabrics, materials, innovation, sustainability to mitigate any impact that we have. And there's many, many examples of that. So if it's working with Econil, our swimwear, which probably not a lot of you know Econil, but it's a really great brand in Slovenia, and they worked out how to get discarded fishing nets from the ocean. There's 640,000 tons of things floating on the ocean at one time, and take it back and make it into repurposed nylon. So there's a nice story there that sort of fits the brand story, where we're taking something out of the sea so you can go in it. And then so that's an example. And but there's many on the website. It's recycled polyesters, natural fibers, and there's also I talked about being brave, honest, and hopeful earlier. It's like being honest and saying when we haven't got all the answers, we work on a circular business model, a regenerative business model. It's something we're moving towards and on a journey to do. But it's about having that, saying we're not perfect, but we are on a journey to deliver that. And what gets that better. What gets out of bed is making sure that we're mitigating that impact. So that exists throughout the whole business, and that was kind of the initial idea when I started Finisterre. But there's really amazing people there that sort of taken that on and really kind of driven it forward.
Amazing, thank you. I haven't got any more on the app. If there's any more in the room, Joe.
Tom,
Hi, Joe.
thanks. Great to see you in the amazing films. Your wetsuits that you're making, these ones with the zips, and are these going to be kind of more widely available? Or what's your thoughts on that? So what's the clicking?
It's
a sign of appreciation.
Yeah, let's still click. Yeah, more clicking. I shame it's the end of the conference. You could have started. So what we from Andrew's story, what we're now going to do with the foundation is that if you want to get a winter wetsuit or a wetsuit from us, you could get it, and we would then we would pay for the adaptation through Bodyline. And so we did that's happened the last few weeks with the guys there. We work with them a lot on our repairs, and so we through the foundation we would fund. So it's about equal. That's a kind of price point access or barrier that we want to break down to getting in the sea.
So just to be clear about that. That's available to anyone.
You just email the foundation. It's the foundation at Finisterre.com, cool. And we can make that happen. Yeah.
Got one more online. Thank you immensely for your wonderful example. Just wanted to say that I think we have the answer about whether to go to the beach or to the wave pool. Both are important, even for the same person, to meet different needs. So that was a response there.
Nick's in the back there. Yeah, it's great. I remember when we first talked a long time ago when it was and he's been on a similar journey to me, and it's like it's quite grueling. Like I'm sure, if you're doing something you really believe in, it's, it is, it's hard work. And there's a really amazing, you guys should look at it. It's called the emotional journey of doing anything great. And it's about how you start off, it's like, oh, it's an amazing idea. Oh, it's a bit tougher than I thought. And then you kind of get in this thing called the swamp of despair, which is basically like, oh my God, what am I doing here? It's like, it's just a nightmare, but you've got to keep going through that swamp. And basically you get up and you come out of the swamp and you're like, it's going to work. Oh, it's going to be amazing. It's going to happen. And then the thing is, if you've been in the swamp, you can build a bridge across the swamp to help other people that are going into the swamp. I gave this out to the guys at work, and they've all got it on their wall, and they put where they are, and they're often quite near the swamp. So my point is that it's like it's a hard thing doing things different, doing things that breaking barriers, innovative, starting stuff in communities that you really believe in. It's really hard. And when so Nick and I have been on a similar sort of journey in that respect. And when we originally sort of came down to Will Kitty and talked about the wave and what it was going to become, I think the thing that I was and he was most excited about was not just the expert pro waves and how many barrels you're going to get. It's about access to water and waves for people that wouldn't be able to do it. So to that point, from that person there, yeah, great, totally on board with that.
Great, thank you. And I think we've got one more in the room. Hang on, I'm just going to run over here.
Sorry, leading on from a little bit what Joe said about the wetsuits. Firstly, amazing, and that it's going to be accessible to people. So are you going to be making kids' wetsuits? Because obviously lots of us work with children and young people, and so that your wetsuits are fantastic. I've got one, but you can't get a child's one. And
that's a really great question. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing to be able to go to our parents. You can go and get a wetsuit from Finisterre. It's really well built, it's fantastic, but also you can get it adapted, and so your child with cerebral palsy can wear something which isn't 4 sizes too big.
Yeah, we don't make kids wetsuits, so that's a really good point. Be totally honest, we haven't got any plans to make kids wetsuits right now. But maybe we should. I'm just thinking aloud as we're talking. And because they're made from Ulex, that's kind of cool. That's a bio-rubber. But I'll be more than happy to, maybe we should look at that at the foundation. Is that if we don't make kids wetsuits and it's like there's a wetsuit brand that you've got already and it's like you would like that adapted, we should definitely look at that. Yes, so maybe that's something we should do. What a great thing to come out of today.
That would be amazing. And to put another thought in your head.
Yeah, thank you.
We work with lots of children. I work for the WAVE project. We work with lots of children with autism and or with sensory needs, and they come down and they literally hate the wetsuits. They hate wetsuits. They hate the material. Would you consider doing like a panel with young people to try and make something which actually gets over that sensory thing? Whether that's something they can wear underneath or something. I just think it'd be amazing for the foundation, but amazing to be able to say to kids, look, we're listening to you, and amazing brands listening to you and doing something to develop something which...
If you'd be up for helping us do that, and we do a thing where it's like and that, for me, that's the super exciting thing about just the role of the brand is to do that sort of thing. And if we don't want to do like a wetsuit tester sort of weekend thing where you could get the kids along, we could work with you, and you could be informed about what sort of wetsuit we should make or whatever. Yeah, absolutely, that'd be a cool thing to do. Yeah, I'm really up for that. I mean, that's the great idea, So let's talk more.
Amazing.
Cool.
Two more just appeared in the room. Can I do Hannah quickly as I'm here?
Hi, and just another idea for your wetsuit.
Yeah.
You can get sort of period pants.
Yeah.
And can you make a sort of a period wetsuit?
Possibly. I mean, we're doing. Do you know Dame? Yeah. So we're working with them next year on. Do you know Dame? Yeah. Yes. It's a B Corp, and it's basically all about exactly that, and not the stigma of having a period in the water and the recyclability of it. So we're working with them for next spring, summer. So that's something, it's basically is really quite innovative, I think, and needs to be talked about and worked out what to do. And so I think, I haven't thought about it from wetsuit, but we are working on it in terms of that need for women going in the sea or water. So that is. So that's next spring, autumn, next spring, summer. So yeah, maybe that's something we can work on more. Yeah.
Fantastic. I'll just head over here towards George, if that's all right.
Hey George. All right.
Hi Tom. I know you've done, as an organisation, a huge amount of work for women's wetsuits and some research into that. And it's one of the bits of feedback that I've had throughout sort of surf-coaching career, which is, why are men's suits different to it? Why can't we get the same level of performance in the suit? Why is it, constructed differently? Why is the sizing not as accessible and as available? And I know as an organisation, we've done a huge amount of work. It's a question I get asked a lot, so I just thought it would be a good opportunity to catch up and just ask what the kind of key findings that you found, like 2 or 3 things that you found, and from a wetsuit manufacturer's point of view, why it is quite tricky, or why it might be quite tricky, and how we overcome that, and how I can give people encouragement.
I don't think it is. I mean, I don't necessarily think it is that tricky. It's like, about an honest kind of dialogue with your customers or your community. And so we ran a wetsuit tester weekend, a female wetsuit tester weekend, about 2 or 3 years ago. When we built our first women's test, we basically, there's 100. It was actually an amazing day, and it was amazing 2 or 3 days. And we had the guy working wetsuits on, he came over, and we had 100 people, it was, I think, came down to Real Kitty for a women's wetsuit tester weekend. And I remember I woke up on Saturday morning, I was like, wow, I've got this. It hadn't sort of really dawned on me what's happening. And some girls came down from Scotland and then miles away. They'd all come to talk about female wetsuit design. And I was quite nervous actually going into it about how to discuss it and approach it and that sort of thing. But the main feedback we got from that was actually that the sort of body conscious, body positivity way that wetsuits are marketed is just like it's still now from a lot of the surf brands is very uninclusive, and a lot of it wasn't so much the full wetsuits that people were requiring. It was more the shorties or the sort of the tops and stuff like that would help sort of body positivity and confidence in the water, and not be so sort of revealing of the form, I suppose. And that was the sort of big thing that we learned from that. And then just last year, for spring summer, we had quite a big line of Ulex suits that sort of 2 mil suits, and they're all about kind of not stripping down. And if you didn't want to do that, it's very easy to get into the suit, and that's a big thing as well on the beach. Entry into the suit is a huge thing. So a lot of the really high tech sort of surf suits are actually quite awkward to get into. On the beach, they have sort of getting through the top, and it's a little zip here, and some people that's fine, but a lot of people want a suit they could get into really easily, and wouldn't be a full suit, would just cover what they felt was necessary. So, and it's something that we haven't totally worked out. We're sort of working with our female community on at the minute, and something that we're sort of working as we go along. But if you look at the suits available now, there's quite a wide range, and I think it kind of covers quite an interesting it's part of that kind of question, and the sizing. I mean, I think there's sort of 12 of those different sizes of wetsuit. So, and they're probably with a female, with women, there should be more. There'll probably be more because of it's something we need to address.
That's great, thank you, Tom. Hello. The other thing that came up yesterday, actually in discussion, was like a gender-free wetsuit, which I think is something that I think brands need to start looking at. Instead of having to go to the men's rack or go to the women's rack. Where are those wetsuits for those people to access the water? So something for Finisterre Foundation to start thinking about as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, guys.
We are heading into a lunch break. We're a little bit early, so if you want to catch a quick surf, we might have time. So, but obviously lunch we've got from 12:30 till 1:30. Like a very quick surf. But if you want to have a short lunch break, you can always do that. So it's break time now. Lunch won't be served just yet. I'll head down there and see if they can bring it out a bit earlier. But it is scheduled between 12:30 and 1:30. So you've got a bit of free time now. Thank you. Cheers, Tom. That was